Research by the United Nations Development Programme shows that returns on investments in women are much higher than for men, particularly as women are most likely to share their gains in areas such as education, healthcare, resources with their families and their communities at large. Joining us now to discuss investing in women and the benefits of doing so is Liz Zambonini, who's CEO of the Hope Factory. Liz, thanks so much for your time. I mean, this idea that investing in women brings higher yields than investing in men. It's a bold statement that's being made by the UN Development Programme. On what is it based?
Well, theirs is based on research, but I can also just tell you, after being in this industry now for 10 years, that first of all, there's a far higher interest from women in being entrepreneurs than from men. I mean, the Hope Factory's been running now for 10 years, and we've never said that we prefer women to men, but 8 out of 10 of our applicants are actually women. So to start with, I think there's a far higher interest. I think secondly, the research has also shown that, as you said, women are I don't want to say this and I know it may not be politically correct,
say it.
Women are more responsible. At the end of the day, they say the woman is left holding the baby, and that's the truth. I've got a lot of women who've come through our program because they are mothers and they have to provide for their families, and they are now single mothers.
So necessity is the mother of all invention, as they often say, and obviously because they need to survive, they have to be creative about their economic opportunities. But that statistic, 8 out of 10 women are the ones coming to look for loans. Yes. You don't really get that feeling when you speak to some of the more structured investors like banks.
Yes, well, you see, the Hope Factory is not structured like a bank is, so perhaps that's why we tend to see more of that. Women actually often look, and they start off smaller, but then they can grow their business. So they maybe not as big a talker as a man is and wants to go and borrow, R500,000. They may be looking for something. They start off smaller. They're probably a little bit more risk averse, and therefore something like the Hope Factory, where they can have investments of 20,000 rand into their business, is something that helps just start things going.
I think that's a hugely contested issue, is development finance institutions and a lot of those kind of bridging agencies tend to focus on the small and medium space.
Yes.
And yet a lot of women, as you're suggesting, are at the micro level. Yes. What do we need to kind of restructure our way of thinking as financial organizations and say, this is where the base of the pyramid is, and this is where money needs to be channeled?
Well, interestingly, that home-based enterprises are responsible, and this was research done 4 years ago, for 6 billion rand in our economy. So it's not small, and yet it is, I agree with you, completely an untapped market by the banks. See, banks don't actually really want to give loans of less than 50,000 rand minimum. So I do think that we need to relook at that, or we need to have other enterprises like the Hope Factory that are able to provide the solution maybe below that mark, so that they can then move to the banking level.
When women come to you and say, I've got a business idea and I just need 10,000 rands to get it off the ground, what sort of business ideas are those?
Sometimes it's things like making matric dance dresses, believe it or not, especially in the Eastern Cape, aprons, making aprons, because there's a lot of, whether it's funerals or weddings, where all the women come together, they wear aprons over their clothes. Actually, your apron sometimes is more important than your outfit. Yeah. So that's just as a small industry, that's an example. Then we've had people who've gone into interesting things like screen printing, interior design is quite popular, upholstery. We've even got a woman who reupholsters the seats in cars, which is quite an interesting business that she's managed to get going. So she works alongside, men who are maybe doing more of the mechanical stuff, and she's actually upholstering the fabric.
Now, all entrepreneurs, whether they are male or female, young or old, face the big challenge of sustaining the business in the early stages of its life cycle. Getting it up and running, keeping it operational, and there's now a lot of calls for banks, development financiers, organizations like yourself to not just provide capital, but also to provide technical support, how they must pay their suppliers, how to manage their accounts each month. Those kinds of things are what's really important. To what extent is that a service that's being offered for these women, and is it really make or break for the success of their businesses?
Well, just out of interest, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor says that South Africa has got the lowest success rate for businesses to get past that 3-year mark, alongside Romania and the Gaza Strip. So a bit frightening there. But what we at the Hope Factory, the investment and the capex investments that we make into people's businesses is really a very small part of what we do. The bigger part of what we do is provide very sustainable mentoring. So the person is walked through all the aspects of the business skills training, workshops, and then something that has really come up in the last couple of years is access to markets. And that's where we're really trying to help bridge the gap, especially from when you're moving from an informal sector more into the formal sector. And an area I think government is trying to play a role, but I think it's also very important that government also looks across the board when they're promoting job creation and business development, that they also make sure that things like, for example, the Consumer Protection Act is also not thwarting the efforts that are being made by entrepreneurs to break into the formal sector, because sometimes over-regulation can be prohibitive.
And just very briefly, have we quantified women's contribution to the economy? Once they're successful in their businesses, do we know what women actually contribute to this economy?
I can't give you an exact figure on what women contribute, but I can tell you that research has also shown that the more educated a woman is, and if she's running a business, things they will have, the more successful all her children will be. So really, the future is in the woman's hands.